Burnout is a huge problem in the game development industry, and it doesn't seem to matter whether you're looking in the indie scene or the AAA scene, it is everywhere. Even all of my favorite YouTube developers have experienced it. Thomas Brush, Dani, ThinMatrix, that's just to name a few, and these are all people I really look up to. No one is immune to it, and nothing will kill your dream of releasing a game faster than burnout. So we're going to talk about 3 different reasons why burnout happens and talk about different strategies we can use to avoid it. Because we want to be working on our games at a consistent pace that we know that we can replicate over and over and over again. This is by no means a comprehensive list of why burnout happens, but this is 3 common reasons why burnout happens for game developers. And let's start with the obvious one. Working too much is a problem. This is not a sprint. Making a game is a long haul project that requires patience and persistence. There is a certain amount of energy that you can comfortably output on a daily basis. If you consistently go beyond that threshold, it is going to catch up with you and you are going to crash. And one of the issues I think is that we are able to crunch for really short bursts. We do it in high school and college all of the time. I'm not going to study for next week's exam. I'm just going to cram the night before. I did that for every single test I took in both high school and college. And it can be very easy to start to rely on that method to get things done productively. But obviously this is not a good long-term solution. Working too much or sacrificing on sleep so that you can cram more hours into the day, this is not only a surefire way to eventually burn out, but it's actually the sign of an amateur developer. That might come off as a little bit harsh, but there are very few examples of devs who created their games this way. If you think about professional athletes know when to train and they know when to rest. And they know that both are equally important. An amateur athlete might start out of the gate too strong and then end up injuring themselves. Game developers have to operate the same way. But burnout can be a lot more than just working too much. A lot of that is a physical thing. You are physically working more than a human body can handle. And it catches up with you, so your body actually turns down the volume so that you crash and you find your rest finally. But it can also come from an emotional or a mental aspect as well. If you watch the second last video from Dani's second channel, he explained that one of the reasons he was getting so little done is because the expectations were just so high.
The expectations are just, they're way too high.
Dani has 2 YouTube channels that blew up beyond anything I can even comprehend. Carlson, for a while, was the #2 most wishlisted game on Steam. I don't think it ever hit #1, but please let me know if that's incorrect down in the comments below. But #2 most wishlisted game on all of Steam. He was being emailed from massive companies like Steam, Nvidia, Intel, Epic Games, asking him when Carlson was going to be released. And hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people were waiting on the release of Carlson. He said it got to the point where he couldn't even comment on a YouTube video because other people would just reply to him and say, go work on your game. And when he stopped posting devlogs, he was getting death threats in the mail. That is too much pressure for one person to handle. After that video I just talked about, Dani posted one more video on that channel, and then it's been radio silent ever since, and it's been about 1.5 years. Now, that is beyond the pressure that the average developer is going to face. But I do think that what a lot of us can relate to is the expectation that your game is going to take this long to finish. And the further we go beyond that deadline, the pressure starts to build. The expectation starts to build. I have been experiencing a lot of that with my game Samurado. That's why I talk about it so much. The plan was for it to be a simple 3-month development cycle, and it's been more than double that now. And we're still not done. And since I passed that 3-month deadline, on a good day, it's just a low-grade discomfort that I'm experiencing. On a bad day, when I focus on it too much, it can turn into almost full-blown panic. That's because of the pressure, that's because of the expectation, that's because I know there are people out there that heard me say this game was going to take 3 months and now it's been a lot longer, so I feel like I'm failing on a daily basis. So I'll try to say this in a way that makes sense. The expectations that other people have on you have an effect on you. The expectations you have on yourself affects you. And what you think other people's expectations are of you also affects you. And finally, I'm not sure that this gets talked about enough, but it had a huge impact on my life, so I want to talk about it here. Comparing yourself to others. And yes, I'm going to talk about ThinMatrix again. I watched him for years before I ever opened Unity myself. And it was borderline dangerous for me. And that is not ThinMatrix's fault, that is my fault. But he lives alone. He does dev 100% full time, except for the occasional devlog that he throws out there. He earns enough money from his Patreon and from his YouTube and from past game revenue in order to support his lifestyle. All of that was my dream. And I started building these fantasies in my head of what my ideal workday would be like when I someday started game development, and it was based on ThinMatrix's workday. But for me, it's unrealistic. I don't live alone. I have a wife who needs me. I have kids who need me. I also can't work on my game full time because a lot of my time goes into this YouTube channel because I want to build up this channel to support my family while I work on games, which means technically I am a part-time developer, not a full-time developer. Trying to work ThinMatrix's workday or fantasizing about it or being jealous of it has taken a lot of precious mental energy away from me. And for a long time, I resented the fact that I did not have a life that allowed me to work the schedule that he worked. And that took a lot of the joy of game development away from me. And I did that to myself. I have since learned that what I was experiencing is called grass is greener syndrome. Idolizing YouTubers becomes a problem when you forget to realize that they are only showcasing the highlights of their development process. They take weeks, if not months off at a time. After ThinMatrix released Equilinox, he went traveling for a few months, I think. He probably watches TV in the evenings, just like I do. I know he took up painting for a while and that he loves to garden and cook. My point is there's a lot of non-development things going on behind the scenes. He has a life outside of his games. So working too much, having expectations of yourself that are too high, and idolizing people or work styles that just don't fit into your life. That resentment can take a lot of the joy away from you, which can eventually lead to burnout, I think. So what are some strategies that we can implement to ensure that we don't burn out? I'll say this right off the bat. Do not use every spare minute you have in the day to work on your game. You will exhaust yourself doing this. And this goes especially for you part-timers. I know how easy it is to go work at your day job all day and then come home and want to do nothing but work on your game all evening. But you need fun and you need rest. I have to force myself to stop working and play games sometimes. And when I do it, it almost feels wrong. Like if I'm not using every spare second I have of free time to work on my game, then somehow I'm not dedicated enough or not good enough to actually release a game. That pressure is too much for me. Nikki has had to practically beg me to stop working and play games sometimes because she knows that I'm in a better mood when I do that. Listen to your needs. What does that mean? There are periods where you will have excess energy to work on your game because you're really, really excited. That's totally fine. There are also going to be times where you can feel it. You're craving other things. It might be hanging out with friends. It might be going for a walk. For me, I need nature. At least once a week, there's this gorgeous trail right by the river near my house. And if I don't get down there at least once a week, I start to feel very edgy. It might be spending more time with your wife or with your kids. It might be watching TV. Whatever it is, fun, relaxation, doesn't matter. The important part is figuring out what you're craving, figure out what you need and give that to yourself. And this is easier said than done, but stop comparing yourself to other people, to other developers, to YouTubers, to any idols you might have, like Team Cherry. Everyone, you have your life, you have your struggles, you have your own limitations. They are all unique to you. Comparing your development process with another developer's process is never, ever, ever, ever going to make you feel good. All that's going to do is suck precious energy away from you. But we're human, so it's really hard not to compare yourself to people. So if you have to compare yourself to someone, compare yourself to your past self. Look at where you were last week, last month, last year, and see how far you've come from then till now. That will make you feel good. Being a healthy, successful developer means finding the proper balance that works for you and fits into your life. And you're going to need to adjust that balance when necessary. You want your game done, so you do need to work on it consistently in order to finish it. That's a given. But if you work too much on your game, you could burn out. Your job is to find the happy medium place right in the middle and give yourself what you need when you need it and compare yourself only to your past self and no one else. That's all I got. Like the video if you liked, and if you have ever experienced burnout yourself, let us know down in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or if you disagree. Let me know if you found anything useful that actually helped you. And if you've never experienced any burnout, let me know what tips you have to help avoid it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. I want to give a very special thank you to all of our Hall of Fame patrons: Jakob Yondok, Christopher Nichols, Sandra Kessler, Fontaine Waite, Brainwaves to Binary, Couch, KB at Bird Tech Games, and Ian Oral, as well as our early access patrons: Ken Waite, Mason Crow, Mr. D, Liquid Egg, Alexander Prestis, Jude Greaves, Felipe Gomos dos Santos, Ober, Francesco Latamata, Bill Guo, Alon on Mars, Alex Friedman, Danny Rathliff, Neil, Ben Kerberger, Lucky Tales, Aiden Serve, Adarsh Kumar, Merler, Anastasia Shamalina, and Petter Yurichek. If you choose to support us on Patreon, you can get early access to all of our YouTube videos, monthly alpha builds, and more.